This came out of nowhere. We went into lockdown mode. The CEO was getting death threats. We couldn't talk to any press, and the shareholders were calling day and night. It was the craziest thing I'd ever experienced. I was hired to be the Vice President of Corporate Communications for a brand new startup. I was brought in without a lot of notice and also to a very lean staff. So a lot of it was a bit of a scramble as we were getting ourselves set up and established. So I was doing a lot of things. I had a lot of assignments that were being thrown at me, and it's also the case that sometimes the person who has the best idea for this startup isn't always the best person to be running it long term, so the skill sets aren't necessarily fully formed, and you're left dealing with what that looks like when a crisis hits. A US-based investment firm somehow found out about our company and decided to issue a report. And that report shorted our stock. Now, shorting the stock is not illegal in Canada, but it is a very nasty thing to do. And as a result, we were scrambling. And we had a bunch of shareholders who became very concerned and very upset. As with any company that faces a short on its stock, you do go into crisis mode. And in our case, we went into lockdown mode. I had wanted the company to get any information out, and in my opinion, we waited too long to get that first news release out to just acknowledge the situation. I couldn't get my CEO on the news networks because apparently we couldn't absolutely refute all the allegations. Now, in the absence of any official company information, the shareholders were getting together to talk amongst themselves. They were emailing and phoning me in increasingly high numbers, and they were getting more and more angry because they didn't understand why we weren't just denying everything. And there was also online forums where they could go and talk to each other. So I learned by watching these forums that they were comparing the information I was giving them. So I knew I had to be very careful with what I said. But also, one random day while I was checking the forum, I noticed a death threat against our CEO, and that brought it to a whole new level of urgency. I felt flabbergasted that it could go to that level, and I was absolutely at a loss for what we could do. It was an example of how, in the absence of any official information, misinformation gets circulated, and thanks to social media, it gets circulated very, very quickly. In these kinds of situations, you have to be very, very careful what you disclose publicly because, again, everything is tied back to our stock, our shareholders, and there are rules around what you can and cannot say. But in my opinion, we could have reacted faster and we could have done a better job of addressing the concerns of the shareholders who, again, could not understand why we just couldn't simply refute every allegation that was in that report. This was one of the most hellish experiences of my professional career. I don't know what's worse when someone is actually slinging mud at you and you are unable to defend yourselves. Social media has been able to spread so much information so quickly, and because we were not communicating very often or saying very much, in that vacuum, social media was filling the void, and all I could do was sit there and watch it happen. In terms of the final resolution, this was approximately a 6-month period we went through, but with any stock that is being shorted, once they get their money out, the share price levels off, and then the shareholders calm down. But there was a bit of a dramatic outcome for the company. The CEO had to step down, and the company decided to relocate. Now, it was a great lesson, especially for any startup, about chain of command and the need for whoever your senior communications person is to always have a seat at the table, because that information has to flow two ways. But really, at the end of the day, and especially now looking back at it, you just really need a sense of humor to get through it all too.